Welcome to Marianne's Morning Talk. Today, I have the great pleasure to have a very special guest, Paul Cunningham, the CMO at Westcon Comstor. So, Paul, I'd like to talk to you about something close to your heart, putting data at the heart of marketing. But I'm curious, as you are our CMO, shouldn't you be more concerned about creating flashy marketing campaigns rather than data and analytics? Why are you so passionate about it?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Marianne, and thanks for having me on the show. I'm really looking forward to our discussion. It's interesting, isn't it, that people always start with the assumption that marketing is purely about the creativity, right? And the logos, the icons, the imagery, the brand. And of course, those things are really important, and they're a big part of what me and my team do. But increasingly, that activity has to be informed by data. It has to be informed by what the data is telling us. And you know very well from your time in the channel and with Westcon Comstor that data typically in the past was just about proof of performance, right? It's just, we had to show our partners, our vendors, what it was that we'd achieved. And here's what we did this quarter. Here's what we did last month. And we tended to think of data in those historic terms. And I'm here to tell you that view of data is itself history, right? We've got to get used to the idea that data tells us more about the future than it does about the past. And that's the kind of culture and the attitude that I'm really trying to embed in the marketing organization. Because when we think about what data can tell us about the status of a partner, their propensity to buy a solution, whether they've invested previously in that solution or indeed in a competitive solution, that tells us a lot about who we should be marketing to, how we should be marketing, and what we want to say to them. So to me, it's almost like a no-brainer that the marketing activity starts with the data, and then we get creative. And just to think of it purely in terms of the creative aspect is missing out on half the equation.
Yeah, I fully agree to that. Yes, the more we understand our partners and our customers, yes, the more we can give them the right information from our side, especially from a vendor side. Yes, giving that information what we are getting, because we do not only have one vendor, we have more vendors, and then we can give that data as well back to the vendors, what we get from our partners. Yeah. But how important is data towards understanding our customers, and how can our partners benefit from understanding key analytic trends?
It's huge. And you've seen a couple of developments recently that kind of established that for us. So the most recent one is the work that we've been doing around the solutions lifecycle management, right? Yeah. The idea that as we progress into more of a software and service-centric solution in the end user organization, that solution itself goes through a kind of life cycle. And we talk about, of course, the initial securing or the landing of the deal. But increasingly, we're able to think about how that solution is more widely adopted inside the organization. Is it being used effectively? Are the features being deployed and accessed in a meaningful way by the customer? Once you get to the adoption stage and that value starts to accumulate for the customer, can we expand the use of the solution, either to more people or to sell additional capabilities to the existing people? And then, of course, somewhere down that life cycle, we want to think about refreshing the technology. And eventually, if it's a contract-based subscription or service area, then there's a renewal aspect to it as well. And in the past, we weren't in the channels so concerned with that end-to-end cross-life cycle view. But the point is that data can be identified at every single stage of that life cycle. And that will tell us how best to present opportunity to the partner. And in turn, it tells them how best to represent that to their customer, their end user organization. As we move into this subscription world and everything is becoming as a service, then the way I characterize that is to say that every day is delivery day, right? In the past, delivery day was when the kit turned up and you unboxed it, you installed it, you commissioned it, you made sure it was working. Often you walked away from it for the next year, right? Until it was time to talk about a renewal of some kind. Now, the way the technology is consumed and the way it's deployed, as I put it, every day is delivery day. And we can help our partners be more present in the delivery of that and be more effective in the eyes of their customers.
Yeah, I fully agree to that. And we see that every day. So you have said some real cool things about data and analytics. But how can we as marketing expert best action that data that we collect?
We're getting better at it all the time, right? And although it's not under my responsibility, as you pointed out with your first question, why does a CMO care about data? We've got teams of experts over in Callum McGregor's organization who are avidly working away at this data strategy, and they are far better than me at explaining how that is achieved. But I guess there are two aspects to it which really excite me. The first is that, again, historically, you could only really deal with data in the context that you were working on it with. So it might be in your CRM system, it might be in an Excel spreadsheet, it might be in some other database, you might have it in a marketing automation platform. And it was quite hard to build the bridges and identify the patterns that connected that data. That's changing really rapidly. So now it doesn't matter where the data is. I can bring it into a kind of analytical layer in the way that we're doing it. And I can ask questions of it regardless of where it came from. Yeah. So you've got this means of, if you like, melding or molding together of data into just basically one big bucket is a very simplistic way of putting it. And then you can start to ask really interesting questions and look for the patterns and connections that you just couldn't see previously because it was all kind of divided up in those systems. The second aspect of the strategy that really excites me is the visualization, right? I'm a huge sort of visual thinker and communicator, and from my point of view, that's how I absorb information. And I'm a bit of a student of visualization techniques and how they can be made more effective. And that, for me, is the answer. When you can get something into a picture to represent those patterns and those connections, then it starts to have more value, because very few of us are fluent in advanced Excel, right?
Yeah.
Or advanced Power BI technologies. So the idea that we can represent it simplistically in a way that shows people the patterns, they can get ahead of the activity, identify those trends and patterns early. That's what gives us that advantage.
I will have another morning talk with Atul Damani, who is responsible in our organization for the data analytics. I think he will give us as well some more insight about that.
Yeah, you'll be talking to the expert then, far more than me. But those two steps of that, what he will term virtualization, the bringing together of various data sources and building those connections, and then the visualization, how you portray those connections to the business, he's the expert. But for me, as the business consumer of those services, it couldn't be more exciting. It's really going to change the way that we do our marketing. Exactly.
That is what I wanted just to say. Yes, we need then to say, how can we transfer that data in the right marketing activities to help our partners, yes, to increase their business, because that is what we all want to achieve in the end.
And of course, that has to be done responsibly, right? I mean, I'm talking about data in a very new frontier way, right? It's really, really exciting to have these capabilities and work with it in that way. Of course, we also have to make sure that we're compliant. And the need to toe the line around things like GDPR and privacy is absolutely paramount. So it's that responsible use of data. Even with that excitement in mind, we still need to be responsible and legally compliant. And that, for me, is it's the other dimension to this, which is making sure that we do follow the rules and we get the maximum possible value, but at the same time, the maximum possible compliance.